My husband, Terry, gave me that little thing. Thank God for it, too. Some people wonder if it's ridiculous, a deaf woman owning an iPhone, but that's just ignorance, and, well, there's no app for that one. But you should know that that little device is a big concession for me. You see, I don't like to fit in. I spent too much of my life trying too hard. The only thing we're fitting in is your genes. That's what I tell my son. Told. Every day, parents make hundreds of decisions about their children, whether it be what to eat for lunch or what to wear to school. These decisions can range from inconsequential to huge and life-changing for their children. And parents must reconcile with the consequences their actions bring upon their children, even when those consequences leave them wishing they were Senseless by Katherine, Raul. Some people wonder if it's rude to ask if I was born deaf. No, it's not, and no, I wasn't. I was born perfect. Oh, I loved the sound of my mom singing, and I still remember what my dad's laugh sounds like. But when I was 11, I had this epic war with meningitis, and all of a sudden, I couldn't hear Mom singing anymore, and Dad stopped laughing. School was hard for me. It wasn't that I wasn't smart. I mean, the words smart and Alec were frequently mentioned with my name. The problem was fitting in. People didn't understand me on so many levels, and I didn't understand them, so school was lonely. Well, at least it was until I met Terry. Oh, and at first he just smiled a lot, but then he would write me notes. And that's actually how we went on our first date. Pens and notepads in hand. Eventually, Terry learned sign, and his hands were big and slow and clumsy, but so was my heart, so it all worked out in the end. Oh, but when we got married, Terry had no idea what he got himself into. I mean, we had to go house shopping, but we had to find a deaf-friendly house. And we looked for 8 months before we found this place. But, you know, I think we'll retire and die in this home. It's so much of who we are. And when Spencer was born, this house finally felt like a home. You know, it wasn't supposed to happen. Statistically speaking, deafness is almost always just one generation thick. Spencer was going to be my loud, musical, normal little boy. And when we found out that he wasn't going to be, that he wasn't going to fit in, I made the promise that I would never try to make him into something he wasn't. That's why I insisted against the cochlear implant. Oh, Terry was furious. Said I was too concerned with my pride. But you know, it was about pride. It was about my son. Spencer was going to be born perfect. We argued for the last 4 months of my pregnancy, but when Spencer was born, we were both just so in awe of this little man and his big brown eyes. And we started him in hearing school because Terry wanted him to try it. But he was labeled so many things during those first few years. First, he was mute. Then he was hearing impaired. But then he was deaf. But then he was just special. Then he was ear disabled. Then he was hearing challenged. And then retarded was thrown in there a couple of times. And we were moving him to the Clark School for the Deaf. And for the next 6 years, he loved school. Oh, he'd come home with all these stories about all of his friends, and I was just so proud to have raised a son who was so happy. But, Spencer found out about the cochlear implant in school. He asked that for his high school graduation, maybe we could all sit down as a family and talk about that possibility. But I was so mad at him. I felt so betrayed. Terry told me that it wasn't my life and I should just let him find his own way, and you can imagine how I took that little bit of advice. And Spencer smiled at me, and those big brown eyes melted any resistance that I had left. He was gonna head to the library and bring us back some information. On his way out the door, he made some smart comment about how in the future, if I wanted to get my own way, I should remember that the silent treatment doesn't work on the deaf. That was the last moment I had with my son alive. You see, he must have been so excited to show us all of his information. Oh, he must have wanted to spread out all his papers on the table and then excitedly just rattle off statistics and sign everything that he was going to do once he got his surgery. He must have been in such a rush to prove me wrong, because if he wasn't, he would have been more careful. He would have waited for the crosswalk signal. He would have seen that truck coming. What was a deaf boy doing at a blind intersection? Daring fate. God, why was I so proud? So selfish? When he was born, why did I say no? When he asked about it, why didn't I just say yes? Why didn't I let him find his own way? Why didn't I listen to him? Why didn't I listen? I could have done anything other than what I did, and Spencer would have been fine. The worst part is I couldn't even hear the phone ring. Terry's big, slow, clumsy hands had to tell me that my little man was gone forever. So it's Terry, the funeral director, confirmed for this weekend. Thank God for email. I don't know how I would say the words even if I could.